Well, this is it. First video cast, if you want to put it. Instead of doing a regular podcast, we figured we might as well put it on video. I think we did our last podcast on YouTube anyway, so
yeah, that's
figured why not? Don't mind the furry friends rolling around. I know you want attention, but go lay down.
So what would you like to discuss on today's pod/video cast?
Oh, I don't know. I guess we kind of just wing it.
Yep, we're definitely doing this very organically. Well, I know Nathan's been working on the RX-7, getting that wrapped up, doing the brakes, and obviously doing some customer cars like the SRT4, the second gen sitting in the garage. I'll have my Talon back before too long, so that's exciting.
Yeah, just working on all kinds of DSMs. Got 5 customer cars at the house here now. Like he said, the SRT4, 3 DSMs.
Yep.
BMW, the 335 that is in the in some other episodes there here a little bit earlier on last month I'd say. But we're waiting on parts on that one, so just kind of idle on that. These DSMs wrapped up, and pretty much that's about it for customer cars. I'd really like to start on my own stuff, major projects, and I think a lot of that is going to get covered under the next episodes here, probably maybe in a month or so. But definitely come winter time, I'm going to really focus a lot on my own projects and getting my DSMs done, or at least working on them, making progress. So
Right, yeah, same with mine. Just getting it back to running, driving, getting a proper tune on it, because the last tune on the Talon was what I would like to call very lackluster. So just trying to get the speed density on that, getting rid of the mass air sensor, getting the fuel system put back in it the right way this time around, and just getting it back to being a driver. And a lot of the small tweaks I can make right at my own house. Just
we'll be able to get a good tune on it though.
Oh yeah.
That I've had the luxury of working with Kevin Jewer and taking one of his tuning classes on DSM Link and everything, so
it's going to help immensely, trying to get the tune. I mean,
he's an extremely helpful guy all around. If you have any issues, or questions going back on tuning, he, doesn't even hesitate, even if it may be redundant questions over and over that I know that I see him getting asked, and he doesn't seem to, I'm sure, I can't say he doesn't mind, but
plays it off nice.
Yeah, because he's helping the community. He'd rather see somebody, repeat the same thing over and over and see somebody tune their car correctly than get it, messed up. So,
right.
I think a lot of that has to do with it.
That's a lot of mine, is just getting the Talon back together, and over winter as you're kind of filtering through your projects, having you doing some things to that and some other upcoming things, and
more normal car nonsense.
Yes, normal car nonsense is definitely in full swing. I've gotten just downright ridiculous with it, honestly. So
technically, the Mirage would be the first episode of the normal car nonsense, but it's kind of one of those things that we've been talking about, taking average cars that aren't crazy obtainable and just doing nonsense things to them, making them more performance oriented, and just along those lines, making it enthusiast, not even necessarily performance, or just making them appealing to taking a normal car and making it appealing to enthusiasts like one of us. So.
Yes. And part 1 of that is actually in our YouTube. We did do the part 1 and discussing some of what I have planned. It's in our video feed. But more or less, that car right now, before I get too crazy, just trying to truly make it handle better, give it some more power, get ready to open up the exhaust on it. I'm going to throw some coilovers, some nice wheels on it, and kind of like I said in the video, adjusting the aerodynamics of the car. I actually did, and I haven't even mentioned with Nate yet, but I have actually been in touch with APR, who does some truly good track aerodynamics. I've had a hard time finding a front lip for that thing. and I know I'm gonna do the canards. NRG makes a nice set of real carbon fiber canards for like $60, and they just use some hardware. You just drill through the bumper, you mount them. There's been some actual good testing on those, and I like what I'm seeing. But I had seen APR list that they do universal splitters. And by that, basically what you do, and this might help somebody listening who's in the same boat, you take some cardboard basically and you trace the bottom of your bumper. And then you fold that up as a template and you send it to APR, and then they send you a front splitter with some hardware. They include those strut rods, and what's actually cool about it is there's 3 different options. You can get a normal fiberglass, you can get a carbon fiber, or the honeycomb carbon fiber, which is the most rigid. Obviously, if you know anything about aerodynamics, the rigidity of that is very important.
Yeah, to actually produce the downforce.
Exactly, and APR actually told me those honeycomb ones make so much downforce, in fact, you can't just bolt them to the bumper because they have actually ripped bumpers off. So they include like these 4 or 5 strut rods, and what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to pull the bumper off and drill some small holes. You're actually supposed to like weld some tabs on your front crash support and then stick a bolt through it.
Yeah, so you're supporting it to the crash support,
Exactly.
not the bumper skin.
Ironically, I've been wanting to have Nathan make a front tubular crash support for the car to cut down some weight and to make some more room for an upcoming project that's going to require some more room in the radiator area. But APR said on average those things can generate 300 pounds of downforce.
And something that little and that light,
That should make that car stick like glue, and it'll cost me around $500. So for anybody who has an obscure car like my 6th generation Mirage, maybe you have an old Alfa Romeo you're wanting to make a track car, maybe you have an old Maserati, whatever it is, they can make you a front lip. So I hope that can help somebody out.
yeah, even us DSM guys too.
Yeah, if you were doing a track DSM, which has been done, guys like Greg Collier's done it, and I'm sure that's probably what he did, but I didn't know that. They were nice enough to say, hey, we'd love to support, the project. It's a very obscure project, and we would love to build that front lip for you. So that's something I plan on doing right after I order my coilovers. So you're going to see that, some canards, maybe a splitter on the rear of the car, some diffusers, and gonna try to make that thing more track focused and then start upping the power in a very forceful way.
So the way it sounds is it's gonna definitely need the track width widened just because the natural tendency of these cars, they're very top heavy, so they're pulling wheels off the ground. So.
But I was talking with Tire Rack, and if we rolled the fingers, which we've done before.
It's a very horrendous sound if you have never rolled fenders, by the way.
The end keys I'm going to order are 15 by 7.5, which could actually support a 235 tire. They did some math and said if we rolled the fenders and ran a 10 mil spacer, I could actually tuck a 215 under it, which would further widen the track of the car. By that point, we will have widened it about an entire inch, and it's not going to hurt, and just because I don't think anybody's doing it. But I know I'm going to.
Why not take something obscure and, pave your own path? The small cars are real popular in Japan.
Right.
They have been for a long time. The smaller, 3-cylinder turbo cars. So kind of follow the line of what were those? The Minica?
Yeah, you got the Minicas. You got the, one of my favorites, the Suzuki Cappuccino with the 3-cylinder. You have the Daihatsu Copens. And the Honda Fit is actually really popular in N1 endurance racing. Spoon has their own sanctioned fleet of those things, and they actually have very similar proportions to the 6th Gen Mirage. So, can't tell me it can't be done because Spoon's doing it. Granted, they're a multi-million-dollar outfit, but I'm also stubborn and I have a hacksaw, so we're gonna make it work.
Yeah, you can do anything you want with a welder and a saw. So,
and that's what I've been telling a lot of people in the Mirage forums. They're super giddy about it. How are you going to make these things work? Well, that's the thing. If it doesn't exist, we'll just create it.
Mm-hmm. And that's the plan too. That's kind of more my forte. If it doesn't exist, which there isn't much out there, we're planning on creating it. So, turbo header, intercooler setup, air to water,
crash supports,
tubular stuff, anything pretty much that we're going to be needing on his car. we plan to, put out there and possibly produce if it has any interest. So
Yeah.
anything that you see in the future episodes, we'll definitely produce it. So
if 25 people are hardcore and wanted a tubular front crash support because they were thinking about cramming an intercooler in the front, or they just wanted to drop. I think I seen the weight on that front crash support being like 66 pounds. If we can make that thing 15 pounds, well,
Right.
it's a 50-pound savings over the front of that nose of that car. So
turn it into chromoly or something like that.
that's what I'm thinking. Same for the rear. I know on DSMs that rear crash support's well over 50 pounds. So, if you're making that thing out of DOM, and not only that, you're not making the car completely unsafe, because I would trust DOM over a bunch of cast iron, personally.
Yeah. Either way, I mean, chromoly lets you make it a little bit smaller. Obviously, the price has
Right.
increased, but yeah, DOM would be fine as long as
Chromoly would be great just because it doesn't. I know chromoly, if I'm not mistaken, is usually lighter.
yeah,
and-
because it's the same thing with like a forged wheel versus a cast wheel. It allows you to use the grain in the part is actually tighter, so it's stronger. You can shave more of the material off, and it'll still be just as strong with a
Right.
smaller part. So that's why you see all your race car full tube chassis cars. They're made out of chromoly because just as strong, but a lot less wall thickness, a lot smaller diameter for the same strength as a similar DOM. So it just saves you a lot of weight in the long run.
The inspiration to every project I've ever done, including my Talon, is I've been a Lotus fan since I've been like 6 years old. And if you know anything about Lotus, that's awesome. You're definitely a true car enthusiast. Every car they built had pretty lackluster power figures, but they were so light they were outrunning everybody with them. And I grew up on those cars, and I've implemented that to almost every car I've had. I try to always find out how can I get weight out of this car, because it costs nothing to reduce weight usually. You
It's
don't
as
always.
effective as putting power in.
It is, and you don't always have to, have 700 horse to be able to run a 10-second pass. Or even around the track. It's all about doing what you can to lighten it up, because that increases fuel economy, grip, braking, your top speed, your acceleration. It reduces wear on parts. So the Talon I've lightened pretty. It's almost inspirational how much I've gotten out of that thing, and it's only going to get lighter. But the Mirage, it's still a DD, but I plan on lightening it up in the way of some seats with those tubular parts we're mentioning, and I would love to be able to do a tubular K member to it. That way I could get a little bit more custom with the engine and transmission mounts, maybe be able to adapt something from a Honda, but it's all about cutting weight. And my end goal for that car, and it is an astronomical goal out of a 3-cylinder, but I'd love to hit 240 horse with it, which might not sound like much. But if the car weighed 1,750 pounds, it would outrun a Scat Pack Challenger very easily
Right.
at twice the power. That's my goal. Lightweight, flickable car that has enough power to be able to outrun a new Corvette, all with 3 cylinders. It's something I think would be great. It would be, to me, just an amazing achievement.
Yeah, obscure, but yet still, retain its practicality. You'll be able to drive it too. So
Yeah, throw my kiddo in it. She's a car enthusiast, and even she complains how slow it is. So, like I told her, give it about a year, and it'll be fun like the Talon is. So, it's my plan. I love Mitsubishis, and I don't care what kind of Mitsubishi it is. I would love to modify it. It's just the way I am.
Yep.
If I had an Eclipse Cross, I'd already have extra booster on at it, but I can't help myself. It's part of being a hardcore enthusiast. Well, you have a pretty obscure car in your hands too with that RX-7, between the production story behind it.
yeah, the extremely early production.
Yes.
Still kind of waiting on the information to get back. We're not too sure on it, but we do know production number wise in the sequence of the last 6 of the VIN number, that it was most definitely within the first 1,700 produced. However, not every single VIN number, or not every single number in the line, say like it skips 2 or 3 numbers here, 4 or 5 numbers there,
Right.
and it kind of goes down the line. So even though being because the very first production Turbo 2 VIN number was like 140019, where mine's like 141729, I believe, or 49, something like that. So within the first 1700 or so sequence of the VIN number is what this car is at. So probably it's anybody's guess until the guy that's working on it actually figures it out. But the car was produced in a run where from March 31st, 1986 until April 10th of 1986. We don't know why or what the specific designation of these cars that were produced, of whether they were first order cars, possibly, where we were talking about earlier, possibly guys that saw them at the Chicago Auto Show or knew at the Mazda dealers that they were coming to the U.S. and these guys pre-ordered them ahead of time, and this was this designation of cars.
Yeah, like a customer loyalty type thing.
Right,
Kind of
so-
like they're doing on the Jeep Gladiators.
Yep. So we're not sure if it was something, that what from March 31st to April 10th. What was that even? Not even 2-week run.
Yeah.
So it's hard to say. I'm looking forward to finding out a little bit more myself. So definitely within the first 1700, Mazda is produced in that, that sequence number. So I don't know if the Turbo 2s were only sequenced or all RX-7s that were coming to the U.S.
That's a good question.
were in that sequence. I don't know. So we're still trying to find out whether, if this was like number 200 produced, number 500 produced, number 1200 produced. We're not sure, but we're going to, try and narrow that down. He's working on an FD project, like the registry and everything right now. So
The even crazier part of this car is this. Where was that car sold brand new?
about 35 miles from where we're sitting right now is where it was sold brand new in Findlay, Ohio. So
Yeah, that car literally was sold brand new. Findlay's a little bit bigger town. Still not a big town.
Flag City, USA, if you've ever
Yeah.
heard about that, designation. So
It's a smaller town, but they have some dealers. They've had a Mazda dealer there for quite a long time, and yada yada yada. But that car was sold new there. Hasn't turned many miles overall.
73,000.
It's settled right in basically the town we're sitting in, which is a town of like 32 people. Ain't that? I mean, you got to think about that. It's wild. It's a car that basically, it's a homebody.
Yep, it's been local here since before I was even thought of. So
Yeah, I mean, that just makes it even cooler when you really think about it. Not to mention, we're very much in the Rust Belt here. I mean, this is the Rust Belt. But yeah, that car is extremely solid.
yep, it is. It does have a few spots I've documented on RX7Club.com, the forum for RX7. So it literally has 3 small spots that I'll be able to address, pretty much within a few hours of when I go and get ready to do all my body work and prep for repainting this car. So it won't be much work whatsoever.
Just makes you think somebody would love that car, because there's no way that car was driven through winters and fared that well. Chances are that rust accumulated while sitting, honestly. Just the
And
moisture coming up from the earth, and
the way that the inside of that fuel system looked on that car, it's unbelievable how this thing even, survived. Because to put it in perspective, this car has been sitting. The last time that the registration expired was in 2003.
yeah.
Now let that sink in. That was 4 years before I even owned my very first Turbo 2 that
Yeah.
car has been sitting. This car sat for 4 years before I even got my first Turbo 2 when I was 17.
We weren't even in high school in 03.
Right.
So that car, for whatever reason, which I often wonder why it was parked, but it just, because it runs so good. The car is a very good running, driving car.
The look of the inside of that gas tank, though, it had probably sat a good majority of its life. It probably accumulated, the 73,000 miles that it had within the first 4 or 5 years, probably.
That is a valid point.
So, I mean, you know, by the early 90s, that thing was probably sitting for a good majority of its life. So I would say it probably, you know, moved around. It had a couple paint job, or, you know, at least one paint job that I know of for sure. I haven't actually sanded off the paint to be able to tell, but it did have a poor quality paint job on it that is, you know, since flaked and peeled off and faded and looks like it looks horrible, but
Yeah, I mean, the car could use paint, but as far as walking around the body, it doesn't have any major dents. It
Right.
doesn't have any major rust. I mean, I would give the body of that car and the chassis an easy 8.5 out of 10 all day long. And the interior, swap that dash out. The interior,
it's 10.
yeah, it's every bit as solid as the black car. You'll hear us reference the black car a lot because
That was my very first Turbo 2.
it was not only his first Turbo 2, but I would venture to say when he first obtained that car, it was probably one of the cleanest Turbo 2s in the country.
Super low miles.
It honestly was like museum quality. The car was truly, truly straight. And
Everything worked. It was bone stock.
yeah, everything
From the
worked
intake
on that
box
car.
to the exhaust tips, from, you know, everything. It had a couple additional features, like mine has the spoiler. I'm super stoked that I actually found one.
Yours had the glass sunroof.
Yeah, that one, the black car did have a glass sunroof, which was extremely
Super
rare.
awesome.
Yeah, from what I heard, it was, you know, probably a dealer installed option, the spoiler and the glass sunroof.
It did work though.
Yeah, it did
I
work.
remember throwing that glass sunroof back, taking all kinds of different blasts when he had that car. That was one of the funnest cars, and probably one of the stupidest cars a teenager could ever have. But that was a great car. It truly was. That was one of the few cars that was able to stand up to your level of abuse.
Yeah,
It did it quite
literally.
well.
Yep.
That was a great car. I love RX-7s. I'm geeked he has that one. He's had a few over the years that were not turbocharged models. They were GXLs, and he had one that was pretty similar in color back when we drove truck together and drove it to Put in Bay. You did a lot with it, and
That one was a 90, which was the S5 chassis designation.
beautiful. He threw a nice buff on the paint and really woke that paint up. I
Yep.
mean, I couldn't believe how it looked when he was. That actually made you have second thoughts about selling it, because I was there as you were selling it, and I was trying to talk him out of it. But that was a beautiful car. Definitely not as fast as the turbo model, but
It's actually what car my wife solidified her love for driving a manual. She
I
actually
remember that.
was driving the car daily when we were driving truck when I had that. So
Yeah, she didn't have a choice. That was the only running car he had, and she had to go somewhere, and she actually basically
had-
self-taught herself in that car.
yep, she had known a little bit from when I had taught her some in an actual '95 Eclipse.
I remember that too.
Rest in peace. That thing is actually to the
Yep.
scrapyard, but that's a whole nother story. But
I remember
she
that too.
she definitely learned in that 2G, and never really got to venture out on the road in that car. But then the RX-7, she pretty much solidified it and perfecting it ever since. So
See, there you go, guys. RX-7s could save the world. Here, want to
Yep.
drive stick shift in them?
yep, save the manuals.
Regardless of what people say, and I will defend this to the end of the earth, and I'm already hearing the angry comments start to type out, but RX-7s are actually very reliable cars. I said it. I'm also the same guy that daily drove a Maserati, but I don't care. RX-7s are truly reliable, and you have not owned one that wasn't, and
Right.
you own multiple. I mean, he had these two parts cars. I used to have a Mazda truck, and that was one of my favorite cars. We had lowered it and done a bunch to my old B series I had. But he had two, and we basically just took the best of both cars and put them into one car. And that thing, hadn't that sat for forever? And that car was extremely reliable. And that was the strongest non-turbo I have ever ridden.
Yeah, that thing would run pretty well.
That car ran extremely. That white one, man, that car ran, and we ended up having a really great interior in it, and we did that all in a night. We literally built.
Swapped it all from the parts car.
We built these two Mazda RX-7s to make one, and then we did all the work to my truck in one night. To be young again, right? Did a whole suspension on my Mazda B series.
It's nice that truck was a Southern truck too. You know,
Took 45 minutes. We had 4 new shocks on it, lowering blocks. We adjusted the torsion bars to lower the truck 3 inches in the front. We had done the HIDs on it. and we had done an entire interior swap on an RX-7. I think we did all that in 10 hours.
Yeah.
And then we were driving the car around the next day. We got a little bit of sleep, and we were out back road bombing this FC. Some of the best memories I have are honestly in FCs. So
I can honestly say that I have more memories in RX-7s than I do DSMs.
I think I
And
do too.
I know
honestly.
DSMs better, but that's from the experience of, building DSMs for a lot of different people over the years. So,
Right.
not that I haven't had my own, but I haven't, had my own, per se.
All the memorable things we've done have centered around FCs.
Mm-hmm.
I will always defend those cars. I absolutely love FCs. I had my own FB. I never got to drive it. It's a long story, but I had it back in high school. Somebody on RX-7 Club, I believe his name is Smitty or something along those lines, he purchased it and 13B swapped it. So, if some chance you're watching this, I'd love to see pictures of it, but I never got to drive it, but I had driven Nathan's Turbo 2, I think once or twice, and I drove that white one, and RX-7s are one of the coolest cars you can go drive. I don't care what anybody says, non-turbo or not. It is one of the best driver-focused cars of the 80s. Feels great. I actually was messing around with his the other day, bleeding brakes, and just the driving feel of that car. Just more new cars should be like FC RX-7s. That's my opinion.
Best thing of all, pop-up headlights.
Yes, pop-ups are the guy. I love my town. I love my pop-ups. You gotta think, some of the greatest cars of the 80s, they all had something in common. Pop-ups, great driver feel. I always seen the FC as a very nice alternative to the Porsche 944/951 Turbo.
And that's pretty much what it was designed. The design was
Yes.
based on.
They both, and when you look at the numbers, the Turbo 2 had pretty similar output to the 951 Turbo. They were quite similar, except that the RX-7 was a little bit lighter. 951 had more torque on it, but I've driven both, and I everybody knows I love 951s. I would rather have an FC all day. It's more reliable by far. 951s are nightmares. You have to want to own that car.
Because I don't think I've ever heard of RX-7s really having wiring issues.
951s are notorious for wiring issues. RX-7s really don't. With those, it is on. A lot of it is just misownership. They don't like to set, and they
No.
do require to be. They like to be driven and not driven around like an average car. As the saying goes in the Rotary community, a red line a day keeps the mechanic away, and you got to drive them like what they're intended to be used for. It's an enthusiast car. That's why I love it. That car was not marketed as anything but an enthusiast car. It's one of the coolest cars of all times. The FCs, the FDs.
Extremely misunderstood engine platform that
Very much so.
very cruelly gets swapped out for piston engines. Not that I don't like piston engines, but
Oh, I do too. And don't get me wrong, I like an LS swap in most cars. I just cannot get behind it in RX-7s. I can't. You buy that car for that's part of that experience is that starting it up and that idle, that fast idle. If it's working on your RX-7, you know exactly what it is. It was working good on your non-turbo, really well actually. That's all part of the charm of those cars. Same with DSMs. They all have charm. DSMs love to idle surge. It's just things you learn to live with. But yeah, that's one of the coolest cars he's had in a long time. It's very obscure.
yeah, like you were saying too. It's pretty much. I don't know. My Turbo 2 pretty much molded me into who I was as a car person.
Right.
That car, taught me how to, handle a car that was rear-wheel drive platform that, wasn't afraid to, if you push it a little bit too far to, it'll let you go. So,
Oh yeah, they're not all that forgiving.
yeah, I mean, it's one of those where it did handle well. You could slide it around fairly easy once, at first when my limited slip was still fairly tight, but towards the end it would, just kick one legger and wasn't very easy to drift, but
They're tremendous track cars going back to like our previous discussion. The FCs, even non-turbos, they are tremendously good track cars. They take the aerodynamics very well. They take the power. There's a lot of grip in the rear end of those cars if you know how to utilize it the right way. It's another one of the, well, you can't say budget anymore because FCs are anything but a budget car anymore, but used to be a favorite of budget racers. You see a lot of them in some of the older SCCA videos.
Yeah, there's still, that's one thing that's nice about the FC and Mazda in general, like the Miatas and the RX-7s, they're still, Mazda still supports a lot of parts that are still genuine Mazda.
They got spec Miata classes.
Yeah, and you can actually, now there's a program that you can have your Miata restored by Mazda. You know, I think an NA
I heard
Mazda
this being
Miata.
talked about, that's right.
You can actually take it, pay for it, and they will take it back to Japan, strip it down, and rebuild it, and make it all new again if you really want. And that there is a car company.
Kind of brings on an interesting discussion. I hear a lot of people talking about who were the power manufacturers of the 80s and 90s, because right now the biggest market, the biggest craze is the 80s and 90s cars. I think Mazda might have been one of those power manufacturers when you really think about it, because they had the NA Miata, which, yeah, it had like 110 horse, but here's the thing. That car started it all. That was the original sporty roadster that was affordable. That car truly molded the convertible market for passenger cars. And everybody who knows something, they all pretty much attribute the Miata as being that car. Without the Miata, we probably wouldn't have had the S2000. We probably wouldn't have had the BMW Z3. Cars like that, the Miata kind of shaped that, showed that there was a market, and they couldn't build them. There was literally more demand than there was supply for the NA Miatas. It's still one of the coolest cars out there today. NAs are beautiful cars.
I know, I still want one. I've painted and done bodywork on a lot of them, and I still haven't owned my own. I don't know why.
I haven't owned a Miata either, and I have always set out to buy one, and then I don't.
We've always talked about doing, HPDE classes and doing, the driving
classes. Is there
classes.
a better car in the world?
That would be an amazing car. Not to say that I can't drive, but like a track condition and learning track etiquette. Yeah. I don't think it would be. You would be able to start out in a better car, to learn. Yeah, exactly, because it's not gonna kill you from, way too much power, but it will probably still. If I had to guess, it would allow you to, kind of push the limit of the car, speed-wise, not power-wise. Actually build your speed and feel the car.
Learn how to drive the car
with momentum instead of power. So
anybody can be fast with power with today's driving aids, but I've driven the NA and the NB Miatas, and I'm going to tell you, that car is damn near perfect stock. They are tremendously good driving cars. The steering feel, the setup of the cockpit, it is amazing.
That's why I definitely want to get this RX-7 going. So
yeah, they're actually a lot alike when you've driven them both. The Miata's like, I think the best analogy I have is the Miata is almost like you're like living like an insect. They can just dart in different directions so fast. The RX-7's like the perfect mixture. Like it can do the same kind of. It's not quite as darty, but it's just far more substantially fast.
Right.
Either one of those cars are tremendously good. But Mazda had the Miata. They had the RX-7, the 323 GTX, which we had small numbers of those here. The 626 GT with the F2T out of the first generation Probe. They had some of the coolest cars of the 80s and 90s. Pretty nifty. Them Mitsubishi. There was a lot of... It's funny, look at the manufacturers that were killing it in the 80s and 90s, and what are they doing now? They're building Mirages. Yeah, they're building Mirages with 3-cylinders in it and CVTs. Mazda, I can't say much. I've heard the Mazda 6 is one of the best driver's cars for under 30 grand. I'll throw Jalopnik out there. One of their riders really believes in that. I haven't driven one, but the Skyactiv's a cool engine. It's got a lot of cool tech behind it. But I don't think they do the Speed 3 anymore.
I'm not sure.
I know
that's one car that
I
always knew was out there, but I never really knew anybody that had one, so I never really got into them. So
Speed 3s are a blast. Me and Dan, my brother drove a first gen Speed 3. They're a lot of fun. Car was pretty ahead of its time, really. Didn't have enough chassis for the car, but they're so much fun. Mazda has a pretty damn good history of building great cars. I mean, the Miata's still going, and it's better than it ever was. They sell parts of the Miata, like the body and the chassis, to Fiat for the 124, which is a tremendously good car. Exactly, the Fiata.
I would love to have one.
Mazda and Mitsubishi they have kind of lost their way from the 80s and 90s. Those hot, the DSMs, the Evos, the 3000 GTs, the Legnums.
Yeah, the muscle car resurgence, I think, now has a lot to do with that. It's in that phase where the muscle cars are, more dominant in the big, better sales. So sports cars are, they're not as demanded.
It's true. Right now, honestly, nobody's buying cars. They're buying crossovers. Crossovers, we all know that. Anybody who I'm somewhat of what you would call an automotive journalist. And, SUVs and crossovers are what rules this market.
Trucks.
Yeah, trucks. I know they did the CX-7 for a while with the turbo engine. I don't know if they still do, but shoot, give that thing the EcoBoost out of the Ford and just let that thing eat.
Yeah, because look now, Bentley, Lamborghini,
everybody's
making a crossover.
Ferrari just announced.
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
On in what lifetime did you think Ferrari would build an SUV? But Maserati has the Levante. And Bentley has the Bentayga. Alfa has the tremendously good Stelvio. I've driven the non-quadrifoglio Stelvia, just the normal Q4. It's really good, and for the money, I'd be hard pressed to find something better. It's actually really good. So, shout out to Alfa for coming back to the U.S. and having a hell of a good lineup right now. They haven't lost their way when you think. They really have not.
Right.
They've had a lot of problems, but they have never lost track of who they were.
It definitely helps that they're backed by Mopar as well.
It does.
So
that's one car company that never really lost their charm. Even Ferrari lost their charm in the 90s. The 348 was not a great success. They had to totally redesign that car. I don't think Alfa really had a dud. The 164s are timeless today, even the front wheel ones. The Spiders.
The 164 that I found in the junkyard.
Yeah, you look at that car and you still distinctively know what that car is.
You know the grill. You see that triangular grill and you just know.
Where can you go buy a normal family sedan that has ITBs and one of the best engines put into a car? That's the same engine that was used in the GT-V6. I mean, that's a manufacturer that, even though they basically have lost their assets on 20 different occasions, they still build great cars. Lotus do, but we don't know if they'll survive another year. But Alfa, Lotus, yeah.
We've thought that for years though.
Yeah, they somehow keep doing it. I guess they just announced an all-new electric car I just heard about. Electric Lotus, because what's more Lotus than a 3,700-pound electric car?
Right.
It's a little counterintuitive, but I'd love to drive one. Yeah. The Evora's still out, so. Current car community is nuts. There's so many when you really sit back and look how much has changed. The Corvette just went mid-engined. Dodge is building cars with almost a comma in them with a warranty as far as horsepower output. Ford has went, I believe, turbocharged on the GT500. Everything's changing, but then there in the background, you still have Alfa Romeo with V6s and cars. It's kind of hilarious.
Yeah.
Even BMW's changed a lot. They don't make a naturally aspirated model anymore.
They are offering a manual transmission again for the next model year. I did see that.
Thank God.
They're in their more higher end lines, like what was it, the M4 I think now is.
I'm hoping those always have it.
They're gonna get the manual transmission, so I forget exactly though what designation it was. No, that's fine.
The boss of M, it used to be, I'm not even gonna try to pronounce his name, okay? But he went over to Hyundai to the N Group, which, by the way, does not need to be said. Hyundai is killing it ever since they got him. I believe his last name was Nietzsche. But he headed up the N division. He was the one that brought us the 92 M3, some of those great cars. The Veloster N is tremendous. I seen one in the wild the other day. It is absolutely gorgeous.
Weren't they going to do that in a mid-engine?
Yeah, there was some talk about that. They didn't do the mid-engine, but they did give the car a B&M short throw shifter, a 6-speed, a limited slip, and the Genesis, the luxury line that's technically not Hyundai, but it is Hyundai. You can get that with a manual. You can't get the bigger engine with it or the bigger models, but you can go buy a Genesis G70 with the 6-speed in it. But their new M boss, he did say, oh, there'll never be an M3 without a manual. Well, there was never supposed to be an M4 either, but then they just started changing up names for the sake of what I think is marketing coverage. Oh, look, we have a sedan and a coupe. They're different, but they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
But 4s are coupes, but yeah, you can get a $4,000 coupe, which is
Yeah.
actually a sedan. That always pissed me off. I'm going to just air that out now.
Ever since it came out, that's what we always...
God. Yeah, well, the 4s are... Like, I always wanted to just role play with somebody else. So you're like, yeah, the 4 is a coupe. But I just seen a 4 Series sedan. Well, that's a Grand Coupe. Is it? Is it? But the M5... the M5 is no longer manual. No can has, you cannot get in a manual. I've not driven the G90 M5, but I've heard it's pretty good. I have driven the F10, and I don't think it's that great. It's very fast. I hate the steering, and I truly, truly hate the engine note. It's not an M5. An M5 has a V10. If you're lucky, it does have a 6-speed manual from 07 and 8, I believe. And yes, the S85 is a horrible engine. It chews through rod bearings. I don't care. It's tremendously good. But they're a weird one. BMW's an odd one. The M2 is great. I've seen it out in the wild. Haven't driven it, but it does look good. The M2 intrigues me. It's very similar to an E46 M3's proportion, so I would love to get some seat time with one. BMW probably hates me, and I'll never get one, but...
Especially after the
GTS article I wrote.
The RS article.
Yeah, that one didn't do me any favors at all. It just didn't. I'll never ever get a BMW press car. It's never going to happen. That being said, they do still produce some cars I like. I do think the M235, that car was pretty awesome. I think that was like the F33 or something. That's a great car. The M235 was awesome. The M2 is beautiful. But I wish they didn't put the S55 in it because of the crank hub issue. I think I'd rather have the B58. But they do still produce some entertaining cars. The 1M was one of the best cars of all times, and that came out just in 2011. But I don't think the new M3 was all that great. I think it's beautiful. I think the F80 is honestly the best looking M3. I don't like that engine. I don't like the sound it makes. And I think they have reached the limits of what that chassis can handle on power, and that engine is too much for that chassis. That engine would have been great in an M5.
I'll take one in EB2.
I'm not saying I wouldn't take one, but I think I would instantly sell it and just get an E92 and supercharge that E92. The E92 chassis to me was a better chassis. Definitely better steering. You owned an E90. That steering in those cars is so tremendously good. You could tell the different types of asphalt through the steering, and you don't get that.
Extremely tight.
You don't get that on the F80. It's so artificial.
When I had that, my 330 in 06,
that car had the active steering, didn't it?
Yeah, the faster you went, the tighter it
Yes,
got. But
I
still, even at low
love-
speed, it was really tight.
I love the active steering in those
So
cars.
my wife, she actually got in the car after it had been sitting. We parked it during the winter, and she got it out in the springtime. And she actually called me thinking there was something wrong with the steering, just because that's how heavy the steering is in those, and it's so good.
They did some of the best chassis of all time. So the E46 is, of course, it is a masterpiece. Yes, they are all ragged out now, but I remember driving those when they were still decently new back in the day. And E46s are, you almost bought that one,
Yeah,
that Hellride car
Yeah.
before you bought the A4.
That was a 328, I want to say.
It was, and that was a Mantrans car.
Manual 328, yeah.
E46s were the pinnacle of their day. They were, and E36s. I always loved E36s, E30s. So BMW USA, I do not hate you. I just appreciate when you didn't suck. The E30 is still one of the best cars of the 80s, by far. The E36, it won Car and Drivers 10 best like every year it was out. There's a reason it was that good. The E46 was that good, as was the E90. But the F chassis cars, now you can keep them. I'll take the M235 just because had a N55 in it, a lot of power, and a really small chassis, and I like that. To me, that's a car that wants to kill you, and that's the kind of car I like. I don't want to die in a M5. I don't, because then everybody's going to think I embezzled funds from a lawyer, and it's just not going to be good. I'd rather die in an M235. Current cars, though, that's the problem. The horsepower race has gotten so big. You have car companies shooting for it that really shouldn't be. BMWs are never about big horsepower. They're about big chassis.
It's the American way. Bigger, better, faster. That's all they care about. Who can outrun the other guy.
How boring have the Europeans gotten? Audi, Mercedes, and BMW all make 4-liter hot V twin-turbo V8s. So much originality.
Right. I thought that I would have been better growing up in Europe, just because there's these small, obscure cars that don't have to be super fast.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why I like the
People
Mirage.
still like them. Yeah, it's, I don't know, just one of those things where
They just changed so much. Like all their engines, break it down. Think I'm wrong. Listen to this statement. Take any engine displacement out of Audi, and I love Audi, BMW, and take your cylinder count and divide it. Every one of those engines all displace exactly half a liter per cylinder. Every one of them. There's not one I can think of that deviates from that formula. Audi's the same way. So they just went, it's like they all went into like a round table and said, look guys, we're all going to still have a horsepower race, but nobody can have an engine that produces over or under half a liter per cylinder, because I can't think of one that doesn't. And I don't get that.
seems to be a good round number. Like any iconic engine that's made, serious power seems to be, following that formula.
Yeah, a lot of them do. It's just, it's odd because I look back and I think of probably the most iconic BMW engine. You know where I'm going with this. The S54, 3.2 liter. The S38, 3.2 liter. Some of them, I believe, 3.4 liters. There just used to be originality. Mercedes had the AMG C63 and the E63, which are actually 6.2 liters, but, we lost all that. Those big, ridiculously, nobody asked for it V12s. It's like, nah, they just downsized and slapped turbos on it and just sent it. It's weird. And the Japanese manufacturers really aren't doing anything all that interesting either.
Right.
The Civic Type R is a tremendous car, but it's about 13 different kinds of ugly.
The world, I don't know, the economy probably has ruined a lot of it, just for the fact that these companies are still wanting to make as much money as possible, offer something that pleases the consumer,
Everybody's
but still
become
maximizes their profit. Yeah, so
question, and I think this is actually a really good debative topic. Chances are, if you listen to this, I'm sure there's people out there listening right now, I hope, that have a massive budget this big, and some that have just a little bit to a lot. We like to appeal to everybody, but I'd like to think most are probably like us, like mid-class, you have some extra money to play around with. Who right now what manufacturer makes the best obtainable cars as a whole? Can't say Ferrari, or that's unobtainable. Not only that, I don't think that most of their new stuff appeals to me anyway, but right now, reasonably, who makes the most appealing, best enthusiast cars? One of mine might be an oddball choice. I actually have a couple. I think Nissan's doing a great job. The GTR is tremendous. Granted, I said obtainable.
That's kind of
Pre-
borderline.
Pre-owned, those are very obtainable cars. The 08, 09 Nismos, most normal people can obtain those cars. I actually looked at buying one months back. I really considered it. And I'm far from rich. But the GTR, that's a great car. The 370Z, don't crucify me, but I'm not bandwagon. I think it's a tremendously good car. I love the 370Z. It's a great chassis, awesome handling, very stiff chassis, great engine, handles boost very well. The Sentra SCR, the newer one, wasn't as good as the B13, but nothing really is. But still, they made an effort. They made an SCR. I can appreciate that.
I think I read an article on that. I can't remember who wrote it.
They put out decent cars.
The new
right now.
SCR.
The Altamont SCR that was like 10 years back. That was actually a really cool car. I like normal mundane cars that have really cool models behind it. That's all the M3 ever was. It was just a normal 3 Series spiced up. Mm-hmm. That's all the Evo ever was. Oh, here's a Lancer, a peasant car. Let's make it great.
Mm-hmm.
So, Altima SCR, that's awesome. I love an Altima SCR. I think they're cool. Doesn't matter what it is. Give me a cool variant of that car. And Nissan has traditionally done a good job of that. Right now, though, I don't know who's making.
I don't know. It kind of goes back to the whole muscle car race. With the GTR thought, you can get the Hellcats fairly reasonably priced, higher miles, and
Dodge is killing it.
I don't think that they've really had any issues, reliability wise with them. I don't think that, they're not notorious for being junk or anything. And
Dodge has been killing it, and yeah, I know a lot of you have read some of my work, and Matt's a huge Dodge fanatic. No, we used to get in like almost fist fights over this.
He was a Chevy fanboy growing up.
Yes, I have never liked Dodges, but in the last 5 years, who has built more cool cars than Dodge? I don't think anybody. The Viper ACR went to 24 tracks in 24 hours and set 24 records, including at Ferrari's own track. Nothing says fuck you like coming to your own track in a truly affordable car and beating your $1.3 million hypercar. Dodge did that with a manual transmission. I don't know what else to say about that.
America. That's what describes that.
Literally. Whoever drove that car and set that, I really, truly hope. In my mind, this is how I picture it. He jumped out, bit open a can of Coors Light, and shotgunned it. You have the Viper. All Vipers are great. I don't care who you are, you have to respect the Viper. It's a ginormous 8-liter V10 in the front of a car that's about as long as the stand. It's a great car. You've got, they brought us the SRT4. Send all your hate mail you want. It was a great car. They brought us the Scat Packs, which are truly affordable. Nathan had one. Mm-hmm. The Scat Packs are an affordable way to run 12s all day. And if you buy a 1320, like his father has right now, you can go run 11s. Affordably.
1184, no trans brakes, stock tires, stock weight.
None of us are rich, and those are obtainable cars. He's had
I think he is leasing it, and I think it's like $380 a month.
Yeah,
to run, drive it to the track with AC blasting, air down your tire pressure. Yeah, heated and cooled seats. Take it to the track and blast off.
11s,
high 11s, and take it home. He actually won some money with it. It's competitive.
Basically, what my heavily built Talon will run, that car is doing it stock with creature comforts. And you know how many creature comforts my Talon has? It has windows. That's what it has. It's got windows. And that car is doing it stock. The Durangos are awesome. I finally got to drive an SRT Durango a few months back, and I'm going to tell you, it is lunacy. That car is way fast for its weight, and I loved it. I love the Durango SRT with every ounce of my being. The Jeep, if we can throw it in, the Trackhawk, get out of here. That car runs like 11.2 stock. That is ridiculous.
I've seen it personally.
Yes.
One tuned. I don't think it's on nitrous yet, but it is cracking off 1080s now, I think.
Is Dodge the new enthusiast brand when you think about it? They are
In
not,
all reality,
they are not trying to mass necessarily market cars. They have a V6 Charger for that. They have a V6 Challenger.
and I seen where they were getting made fun of on 1320 video for having more submodels than any other car company, because you have
But it's smart.
the
though.
SXT, the RT, the like Daytona, the RT Scat Pack,
TA.
and then the TA, then the Scat Pack 1320, the Hellcat Red Eye.
Jeep has the high altitude, the Laredo. They have the Trailhawk, the Trackhawk, the Gladiator. It is true, but I'm going to tell you why that's smart. Again, SUVs are what sells. Cars aren't selling. So Dodge is still selling cars with manuals, mind you. But not only are they selling that, if you just want a car, a V6 Charger is an okay car. A V6 Challenger at least looks cool. But if you're an enthusiast, how much money do you have now? Can you just afford a Scat? That's a great car. Can you maybe step into a Hellcat? That's a really great car. But maybe you're deeper pocket and you could buy a Red Eye. It's like they sat down one day and had the ESP and read all enthusiast minds, and all they have done is give us what we've wanted. Manual transmissions, they have them. The Viper never came with anything but a manual. So everything we say we want, they offer it. So I don't know why people are so hard on Dodge.
Because they are jealous. That's the only thing that I can think.
Not only that, their quality's not bad. My dad has a 15 Ram Bighorn. That thing is nice to drive. And not only that, it sounds great with his exhaust on it. You know, you guys have had them. I haven't had a new one. I spent like a week with the new Durango, and I didn't want to give it back. I love what Dodge is doing. They are truly building enthusiast cars for enthusiasts.
Hands down, have like some of the nicest interiors too. Like
Yeah,
even
they're-
Casey's Dart, a 2013. That thing,
For the money,
for the money, yeah, the interior on that thing is nicer than my 2018 F250.
it is nice. I love the
I mean,
seats in
granted,
it.
the truck is, utilitarian. It's made
Right.
for, work, but still, for a 13 Econo box versus a, $45,000 truck, it's
Brings
the
me to the
interior is
next
way
point.
nice.
If you're like me and you like sport trucks, the new TRX is about here, and that's a Hellcat Ram. And then how could I forget my favorite new truck you could buy, the Ram RT. I think those ran like a 1280 stock, 6-speed manual pickup truck. That's just, who doesn't love sport trucks? The original Dakota, RTs, the Ram SSTs. Dodge truly has not forgot where they came from.
Yep.
They did own the late 60s and early 70s. They single-handedly owned it. So it's like it's almost like they got lazy in a good way and fell back on what worked. And it's working now.
Yes, it's working.
There's no
brilliantly.
question, it's working.
Look at them now. They're going on over 10 years. 10 years producing the same chassis, the Challengers.
And it's still working.
Yeah,
People
still working.
want
Still
it.
buying them. Still, they're selling like freaking hotcakes.
I just seen a Friday night. Friday night I went out and I had actually had a red Hellcat Charger in front of me that was very straight piped, and it sounded amazing. Had I been able to, I would have got a video of it. We were merging on 70 together. I see them out a lot actually.
Yeah, I was just behind an orange one the other day, just in Bucyrus.
Only Dodge could sell a car that has that much horse at 75,000-80,000 and just not have a problem moving them. The Demons were very expensive.
Yeah, I can tell you
so fast.
The first thought that came to my mind when I saw the Hellcat fender badge was, I wonder if he has the red key or if he has the black key.
Right. How cool is that? And that's the thing. If you have a wife,
If you know, it's like the commercials. If you know, you know.
Right. they are good. And Ford's doing a good job too. The RS was a great car. I think it got way too much hate. He almost bought one.
Yeah.
I had driven one. Wrote a really nice article about it. The new Mustang with the 10-speed auto, the performance pack runs I forget exactly. It runs in the 11s, but on just a radial in the 85, they're going like 1080s, which is nuts for a non-turbo car, non-blower. I mean, actually, the Americans are doing a good job. It's almost like the Europeans got lazy and the Americans stepped up, because I am a certified GM hater. And I had thrown up pictures of the new C8 Corvette I spotted. That is one of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen with my own two eyes. And not only that, it sounded the part. So now we have the C8, which is affordable to almost anybody who has a pretty decent job. The Camaro is still very much ugly, but it is fast. You cannot debate. Those Camaros are fast. But then you have Ford with the Mustang. You have Dodge with like 38 different cars that all run like 700 horsepower now. It's like the Americans kind of, and they didn't take the lazy way like the Europeans did. Let's just throw a bunch of power in this M3 and forget to solidify the parts to handle it. Dodge gave the Red Eye a carbon fiber drive shaft, a trans brake, a line lock, a softer suspension for drag racing, factory drag radials. It's nuts. That turn of events, I
What does that
sometimes I
thing
can't
even run?
The Red Eye?
Yeah.
They go like 10.5.
I was going to say, it's got to be down there considering that that's exactly everything that the Scat Pack 1320 has.
Yeah, I
485
spent time with the Red Eye. That had 797 horsepower. And I'm going to be the first to tell you, this was the first time in my life, and I remember calling my dad, actually. It was the first time in my life I've ever drove any car, period, let alone a bone stock car, that scared me to the point of being afraid to drive it. And that was what a Red Eye did to me. Because that car, bone stock, on the street, will pull the front tires. And not only that, that car will smash you into the seat like a bug. It is so fast. I don't necessarily know what it runs in the quarter. I just know it would do it very fast.
No, I bet.
That car feels like you are free falling, and it is bone stock. And not only that, when you're not driving it like an asshole, it cruises like a Mercedes Benz. It's beautifully just wafts down the highway in complete comfort. But the minute you put it down, you had better have 4 hands on that wheel because it's coming. That is one of the coolest cars ever produced. I don't care what anybody has to say about it. Go drive one, listen to what it sounds like. Burn those radials a little bit and put it up on its little launch thing. That car will literally pull that front right tire, I would say 3 to 5 inches off the ground. It is nuts, and I've never felt that in a car before. I loved it, and I wanted to own it. And I can't stop thinking about that white Red Eye with those red seats. Oh my God, that car was so nice. And that 8-speed auto is buttery. But when you want it to go, it actually will hurt you. Dodge is killing it with those kind of cars. The Red Eye is so cool. I love it. That car's the king of the road. If you can afford the Red Eye at about 90 grand, that's what you should go buy. If anybody said right now, I like drag racing, I like performance cars, I'm not biased, and I have $100 to spend, what should I buy? I wouldn't have to think about it. Go buy a Red Eye. No questions asked. Great car. And then you can cruise it down the road, and it cruises just like a freaking land yacht. It's so cool how far they've come.
And the only thing that designates it is literally the Red Eye on the badge. That's the only thing that designates it from
nothing else
regular
you would
Hellcat.
know, but they have the Demon parts to it, like the drive shaft is
Right.
from the Demon, and it's like they basically just gave you a Demon without the hood with a little bit less. It does not need the extra power. I'm going to tell you now, that car already has more than what it needs. It legitimately scared me senseless. But the thing is it's so good. It goes in a straight line. It's not like you come off the brake and it's all over the road, like hopping up an old Mustang. It's not like that. It goes dead straight. That car does exactly what it's intended to do, go in a straight line as fast as possible. And it does that. It does that very well. It will hit triple-digit speeds faster than you can send a text message. It's unbelievable.
I know it scares me though that we're
surrounded
here.
by these cars on the highway.
No, not even that. Not the fact that we could be murdered by people that don't know what they're doing, but
yeah,
we are here in 2019 with all of this power and all of this technology. Like, where do we go from here?
that's what I wanted to segue into. Is where do we go?
That's where I draw a blank.
You can get 797 horse from a Red Eye, 812 horsepower from the Ferrari 812 Superfast. You can get 840 from the Demon on Race Fuel. The new ZR1 is putting out in the 700 range, which is way too much for that car, as we found out. But the C7 ZR1's a monster. I mean, there's more than one car now putting out 700 horse. The Pagani Huayra put out, I don't remember. I think that was in the 900s. I mean, it's nuts. We have cars cracking 900. Koenigsegg's are putting out over 1,000. Obviously, the Bugatti Chiron put out 1,400 horsepower. That is a street legal, California legal car. So, I mean, I don't know where we go from here. It's a great question.
Well, I guess we'll end it on that at the point that my battery's about to die. But
Well, that is a good way to end. I mean, if somebody wants to chime in on that.
where are we gonna go from now? Where do you see us? 2, 4, 5, 10 years from now?
Is Dodge gonna be the first one to top Bugatti? If anybody's gonna do it, I do think it will be Dodge.
Yeah.
They'll bring out some kind of weird ass car with 1,500 horsepower that kills a lot of people. But yeah, we'd be interested to hear everybody's thoughts on how much everything's changed and where it goes come year 2028.
Yeah, that's crazy to think. Next year's 2020.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited. Hopefully, it's not total electric because I will be a rebel.
But yeah, that is our first video cast for everything. But
It's been fun.
yeah,
It's been
definitely.
very enjoyable.
This is pretty much what we do on a podcast. We find
Yeah.
a spot, sit down, and
This is literally us just talking as
And-
two friends because we have these discussions with no camera. And
Legit,
this
yeah.
this happens every week.
I wish we had a camera crew following us because I'm sure it would be much more entertaining. They could make us look like the jackasses that we actually are.
It'd be ridiculous. Yeah, we would be on some kind of rated R channel. But
Yeah.
yeah, we have a lot of car discussions. This is just two dudes organically talking about the things that most of you probably sit around and talk about. So we would
Yeah.
love to talk with you and figure out what you guys think.
So until next time, probably next weekend. So
Next Sunday we'll have to shoot again. This has been great.
alrighty. Well, everybody have a good one.
Take it easy, everybody.